Hello and welcome to Genetics and Disease, a podcast where we talk about disease and genetics. I'm Liliana.
And I'm Evie.
On today's episode, we'll be talking about gene therapy. So my first question for you is, do you know what gene therapy is?
Isn't it basically when people I think they purposely modify to give it a effect that they want?
Yes, there's many different ways that gene therapy can be used. But basically, what it does is edit genes that are undesirable, maybe cause disease, or give someone a certain trait that we don't want. So, how do you think gene therapy is accomplished?
I assume that it's before birth, and they do something in there and change it, maybe inject or something.
So there's a lot of research that's been going on lately where they've been using this new gene editing tool called CRISPR. And it's like a pair of scissors for genes. And it goes in and it cuts and selects what it wants and what it doesn't want. So it's like a Control-C, Control-V kind of thing. And it can happen before someone is born in an embryo, or it can happen after someone's born. And there's many people today that have had CRISPR done on them to
modify them?
Yes.
So how does it, how do you do that after they're born? Because, I could understand in an embryo, but, after.
So after someone's born, they don't use CRISPR, they use a different gene editing tool. And it basically does the same thing as CRISPR, but CRISPR is more effective in embryos and before someone is born. So the first successful case was done by a man named He Jiankui. And he used CRISPR on twin embryos to create a resistance to HIV. It was detected in the twins before they were born that they would probably have HIV. And so he decided to try using CRISPR on them to see if it would work, how it would affect them. And the kids are now still alive, and they're healthy, happy, all of that. But He Jiankui was kind of never heard of again because he did it in China and they didn't want him to. And he was arrested because it was illegal. He Jiankui is not the first person to use gene therapy. There have been more than 200 adults that have used this as a means to treat sickle cell disease. Edited genes will be passed on to offspring. So if you are born with sickle cell disease and it's a genetic thing and you're scared that it might pass on to your children, if you get gene therapy, it will decrease the likeliness of it being passed on to your kids.
So, okay, low-key, I want to ask, but why do you think, China, even, I know it's illegal, but, it proved to be, a good thing. So even with that, why did they, decide to go after him?
Probably the same reason that we are currently having arguments over abortion right now. The kids didn't have a choice in, whether they got the gene therapy or not, even though it saved their lives and they're now living super healthy and happy, weren't given the choice. So with CRISPR, which is the gene editing tool, many people are worried that we'll be able to create a superhuman race. What do you think of that?
I mean, it depends on what you're using it for, but if you're preventing HIV and doing stuff like that, then it's I don't really see the problem. If anything, that'd be a good thing. So it's in a way, I guess, because they're resistant to that disease. But I mean, I wouldn't see why you're too worried.
Well, some people are worried that governments will use the CRISPR gene editing tool to pick out genes that make people weaker. So they would take out the genes that say, oh, they're not great at producing muscle mass. So you'd have more able military people.
I could definitely see that because I wouldn't be surprised if they started doing that. But I could see the bigger problem being that they're forcing these people. From what you say, it seems like they're probably going to try to make these people go into the military without maybe asking. If you're making people specifically for the military, then I'd say that's a big problem.
Yeah, there's definitely ethical issues in there, which is part of the big controversy with CRISPR. And after you edit a gene with CRISPR, there's no going back because it's a cut tool. It's unable to reinsert those genes that you've taken out. What do you think about using CRISPR to decide what your child looks like?
That's actually insane. I'm gonna be honest. That's kind of, I mean, how will you tell? Because it's like, yeah, you can put that gene in there, but you're not like guaranteed, I'd assume.
Yeah, it's definitely in the developmental stages, but it's become a serious conversation. Like, if you could make your child have blue eyes, would you rather give them blue eyes or make them stick with their brown ones?
This isn't The Sims, so no. I don't see why I would do that.
Well, some parents, they have the money and resources, so
They're
why
probably
not?
the type of people who name their kids like Kylie and then put so many extra letters. Like, that's who I imagine doing this.
Probably. There's a book called, I think it's called The Uglies, and there is a movie on Netflix.
I heard it sucked.
Yeah, the movie was really bad. But the book is very interesting in the sense that everyone, when a child is born, they're sent to live with the uglies in the ugly community. And when you turn a certain age, you're allowed to pick what you will look like in the future. And so then you go and you have a surgery and they completely change your entire body and you'll look like your dream self. And then you live in a pretty society where all they do is party and have lots of fun.
Yeah, that. So you can't just customize yourself unless you get plastic surgery. That reminds me, like literally recently, I learned about this thing where in China these women want like high like arches on their head, like this part, the back part, and this one girl literally had her head injected with like, I don't know what it was, peroxide or something.
Botox?
No, it wasn't even that. It's like an actual chemical.
That's weird.
It was insane, and the photos I saw were insane. And then she started losing all her hair and crying. Like, it's like, no, of course you're gonna lose your hair. You just injected it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. People are crazy. But we are such a visual society that looks really matter to everyone.
No, I'd get a genetic to make me stronger.
Yeah, then you'd be super buff.
I know, right? More than I am already.
Currently, CRISPR doesn't have a very concrete success rate. It ranges from 5 to 60% success.
I mean, that makes sense. You're like changing a lot and expecting a good result.
Yeah. What? The first patient with sickle cell disease to get an experimental treatment using CRISPR was Victoria Gray. The doctors edited her unsuitable bone marrow so that it would produce more hemoglobin. Today, she's living healthily and does not experience any of the symptoms associated with sickle cell disease.
Yeah, see, with that usage, I can definitely see why it's good, and I would use it for that. But it's like changing someone for like no apparent reason, like appearance or strength, is not, that's insane.
Yeah, I don't think it'll become readily available to the public for like a long time because currently it's $2 million to get the process. And I'd hope that for patients with sickle cell disease, they have insurance to cover that and make it a little bit more cost efficient. But
nope, they all hate us.
yeah, I have $2 million laying around. I'm just going to go get this treatment.
Yeah, it's like cancer treatment. You know how long cancer has been? Like, they've literally like found cures and then you never hear about it?
Yup.
Yep, where do you think they go? You don't hear about them.
But you could probably use CRISPR to help with cancer because you just have to delete the gene that codes for it.
Yep, but they're not going to.
Yeah, you make money off of cancer patients.
Yep.
Many religious people are very much against CRISPR. As you can believe, God made you the way you are. You shouldn't change it. And they are half as likely as the religiously unaffiliated to believe scientific research on gene editing is an appropriate use of technology. About 21% versus 47%.
The religious people believe that it could be used for good, or
no, they think that it shouldn't be used.
See, the argument with that's how you were born, it's like a kid being born with HIV, like that's something you should fix. That's the thing.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I'd like to hear their argument about like, like scoliosis, like people get that fixed and they seem fine with that. Like surgeries, they're fine with that. And it's like you could argue and say, that's how God made you to have this complication. So why are you getting it surgery?
Maybe because it's not life-threatening.
Hmm.
And as some Christians would argue, God takes people when he wants, and he is giving them this deadly disease because he wants them to die at a young age.
Which is crazy because that's not it. That's literally not it.
I heard a lot of that when I went to church as a kid.
I've never heard that.
I've heard it. Like when family members would pass away, I'd hear like religious family members be like, well, it was just their time. God took them early. He needed them for some reason. And I'm like, he needed a 7-year-old child? What?
That's insane because I've literally, like, my family, like, yeah, they're religious. And I've heard them say it's like God is giving them the resources to heal. Like with CRISPR, I think they would be like, well, probably not with that, but like with surgery, the opportunity with surgery, they would be like, well, they were given the opportunity to. So I think like that is insane.
Yeah.
Because that's not it. If anything, he's like giving that, like I said, the opportunity to heal.
The long-term effects of gene therapy are still largely unknown, and some treatments may be short-lived, requiring multiple treatments.
I mean, that would make sense. I mean, you're like changing, like, I don't know. Like, it can't be easy changing a gene because it's literally a part of them.
And it's new technology, and I feel like the body would probably resist against it and be like, hey, yo, give me back my gene that I made.
Mm-hmm. It's my work. It's my copyrighted material.
My gene, give it back. I made those A, T, C's, and G's myself. Widespread use of gene therapy could lead to a society that is less accepting of people who are different.
We already, like, what do you mean? Like, I guess I could see it, but it's like we already live in that. Unless they mean, like, it'll amplify, but it's like...
Like, I think you would have generations of people who look the same. Like, blue eyes would be trending, so everyone would have blue eyes. And that one family that decided to give their kid green eyes or something, then they would be outcasted.
Such a funny thought.
Yeah. A whole society where everyone basically looks the same because of trends.
I think we're all gonna be dead before that. Before, like, you can, like, just change. Yeah. There's no way we're getting past that.
Yeah, definitely not in our lifetime. It'll be like 2 generations from now.
If they even get to 2 generations, the world might be gone.
I don't know. Back in 2010, they thought AI was impossible, and all of a sudden it's real. Like, we thought we had another decade.
Yeah, we're cooked. So, yeah, I think you're talking about a century?
Yeah, a century.
Yeah, a century, yeah.
We thought we had another century, but...
Well, good news. The only guy who's working on, like, an Android is Elon Musk, and the only thing he's done with that is make a life for himself.
Yeah. At least we don't have to worry about clones. Ooh, how do you feel about gene therapy and cloning?
The only way I've heard about it is people cloning animals to make it look like they're past pets. I'd say as long as the other animal is like completely unharmed, which it seems like, I don't really see a problem with it.
You don't think those genetically modified animals should have rights? Just because they don't speak English doesn't mean we shouldn't give them rights.
Well, I think they're getting fed and pet, so I don't think they care.